Fox with a couple of free throws makes it 123-115. And Sacramento's magical start to Doug Christie's coaching career is continuing. Bucket by Moses Moody, 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Curry says, let it go. Monk will dribble it up. And the ball game's over. Final score will be Sacramento 123, Golden State 117. Postgame shows upcoming on the 95.7 The Game Warriors Radio Network. Presented by United Airlines.
Well, pretty much Groundhog Day for Golden State. Same type of situation, clutch game, led by as many as 18, came down to the wire, came away with an L. It's just been that kind of season so far for the Warriors. They fall officially for the second time to under 500. They're officially out of the play-in range. They're 11th place in the Western Conference. And they lose tonight in frustrating fashion, 123-117 to the Sacramento Kings. This is Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. My name is Evan Giddings. As always, we're brought to you by Xfinity. Opening up the phone lines at 888-957-9570. I want a loud time for people to file in, but kind of just one of those games where you think about it, you're watching it, it's a here we go again moment, and it comes to fruition. Tip of the cap to the Sacramento Kings. They played some really good basketball, and we understood coming in that they were at full strength. And the Warriors were down 4 players, Kuminga, Draymond, Pajemski, Slow-Mo. They had, I would say, a lot of unexpected contributors tonight. Guy Santos was incredible. Quentin Post, pretty much out of necessity because Kevon Looney did not play the entire second half after leaving with an illness, had to step up and looks like someone that might be able to help the Warriors. But overall, they just weren't good enough. They were not good enough tonight to beat the Sacramento Kings across 4 quarters, and it really all came down to the second half. In the first half, they shot the crap out of the basketball. I thought they played with energy. I thought they moved the ball well. I think in their first quarter, they made 14 shots. 13 of them were assisted on. They looked like a team that, again, came out with effort and energy, and they let it slip away in the second half because they reverted back into the team that we've generally seen. They were sloppy. They turned the ball over. They gave momentum to a team that plays in front of a pretty raucous crowd. They allowed them to get back in the game, and they were unable to withstand the eventual surge that the Sacramento Kings put together. I think overall this is a game and somewhat of a template that the Warriors can use as far as the type of execution that they had in the first half, the contributions they got from fringe players. And I think when they played with confidence, when they weren't a team that was, I thought they just simply got shook in the second half, honestly. They looked like a team that had been in this situation before, that had fallen and given up late leads, and there was a look on their faces like, here we go again. Because that's exactly what the Kings did to it. They just walked them down. And it comes down to a final 4-minute situation where the Warriors go in up. I believe the score was 113-109 with 4 minutes after Wiggins hit a pretty important wing three-pointer. And from there, they go silent. Again, we've talked about this all season, the inability of the Warriors to solve their clutch time offensive issues in the half court. How are they going to generate looks? And it wasn't just a fourth quarter issue. Like Steph Curry in this game only took 11 shots. He was 5 of 6 in the first half, but he was distributing. I mean, the Kings took him out of the game as far as being a scorer is concerned, but in the second half, they took him out of the game as far as even being a passer is concerned. And there was no one else that was able to knock down a shot outside of Andrew Wiggins, especially in the tail end of the fourth quarter. But just going down those final 4 minutes, I thought this game in general was lost in the third quarter, but the fourth quarter, they had a chance to bail themselves out, kind of like they were able to hold on against Minnesota. This, again, was one of those kinds of games. But the game was tied at 107. That was with 5 minutes left after an 8-0 Warriors run. And then Curry comes back in with 4:39. Kings, Warriors go back and forth, score 109. They get a free throw. Wiggins hits a big three to go up 113-109. DeRozan misses a corner three, but then the Warriors just offensively can't get anything. Curry's being double-teamed virtually the moment he steps across half court. Sometimes it felt like in the backcourt. Moody misses on an aggressive drive. Wiggins has a very nice contest at the 3:15 mark on a Monk step back, and then he misses a transition layup that would have put the Warriors up 6 with about 3 minutes left. And what happens? Sacramento comes down. DeRozan hits a midi over Santos. 2-point game. Curry being face guarded again. Can't get an opening. Forces a Wiggins late shot clock fadeaway miss. And then Sacramento speeds the other way. Fox gets to the free throw line. 2 free throws, tie game, 113. 149, same thing. Curry gets double teamed. Has to give the ball up. Wiggins looks to get one-on-one. Blows a left-handed layup that I thought he had open. And then Monk takes the ball, drives immediately inside, gets fouled, gets 2 free throws, takes the lead. Next possession down. This is probably Curry's worst decision of the night, in my opinion. And those that want to defend it, I understand why. But with 134, Curry takes about a 30-foot three-pointer. And it's probably because of the preceding possessions that we just mentioned, where he's double-teamed, he can't get a good look, he wants to try and get in this game and help his team, but he takes a premature early shot clock, deep three-pointer, misses. De'Aaron Fox immediately gets out in transition, gets free throws, makes both of them. Kings are up 4. It's an 8-0 run across 2.5 minutes, and the game is over. I know Quentin Post had kind of a critical mistake on a moving screen after that, but the game was over, in my opinion. Fox put the dagger in him, 119-113, with a little pull-up after that, but that was the game right there. From the 4-minute mark to the 134 mark, the Warriors lost a chance to secure this basketball game. And it was because they could not execute offensively. Curry, once again, and this is not the first time that he's done this, and I understand it's out of necessity in his mind, but he takes a bad shot early in the shot clock. Houston Rockets on the road is the first thing that comes to mind. A little bit of a different situation, but clearly doesn't have faith in the guys around him to get it done. And so a 30-foot early shot clock, three-pointers, the best look that Curry thinks that they're going to get on that possession. And while he might be right, it's a bad shot. And the Warriors were either full of bad shots or ineffective shots or blown layups or missed opportunities. And Sacramento cashes in on all of theirs. That's why they lost this game down the stretch. Inability to execute in the half court down the stretch of the fourth quarter. And there's a couple of players that I look around at and say, you might be able to help here, you might be able to help there. But it's Steph Curry and to some extent Andrew Wiggins for the Warriors. I thought Wiggins played pretty well in this game up until the end. He's going to want some shots back. There's no doubt about that. But overall, 25 points, led the Warriors in that category, while also playing defense on De'Aaron Fox for the majority of this basketball game. I can't necessarily kill him. I thought he missed a couple of makeable shots, but he played his ass off. He played 37 minutes in this game, most of anybody on the Warriors. But it's Curry and Wiggins against DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, and De'Aaron Fox. To some extent, Domantas Sabonis. And I know that he had 26 and 18. I'm sorry. I don't really like watching him play. That team is built to get him big stat games that are inflated. It was those 3 guards, Fox, DeRozan, and Monk, that sealed this game. They had more firepower, and they took advantage of the Warriors' mistakes. In the second half, they outscored the Warriors by, I think, 27. Could be a little bit off there. But 75 to 52. Sorry, 17 points in the second half. They blew an 18-point lead from the first half. Should the Warriors have won this game? It absolutely felt like it. But knowing what we know about this team the entire year, it felt, again, like I said off the top of the show, like Groundhog Day, where you wake up, you do different things, end up in the same place, and you wake up and you seem to do it again. And that's what the Warriors have kind of been stuck in, as they're now 21 and 22. The season's not over. But this is a loss that stings for a couple reasons. One, because you had a chance to win. Number 2, because Sacramento's also a team that you're going to need a head-to-head tiebreaker against if you're going to look to try and, again, jockey for play-in or playoff position. And also the rest of the West won tonight. Phoenix won, Minnesota won, Sacramento obviously won. Golden State officially a game back of 10th. They're in 11th place. They're a lottery team. And it feels like they've been trending in that direction for quite some time towards the lottery, but they're officially there. And this is the first time that they have been officially a lottery team this season. Now, last year they spent more calendar days in 12th place than they did as an 8 seed the entire season. But this year, the Warriors' 12-3 start is moot. And it's taken me a while to come around to it, not because I didn't think it was fool's gold, but again, that was the kind of start that helped you cushion this middling level or stretch of basketball that's now been close to about 2 months. And it's been exacerbated by injury. It's been exacerbated by lack of productivity. It's been exacerbated by a lot of things. But the Warriors are officially a lottery basketball team. And that's something that they cannot escape. My name is Evan Giddings. This is Warriors Wrap Up. The Warriors fall tonight to the Sacramento Kings by a final score of 123-117. 888-957-9570 is the number. Let's talk to Billy Bones in San Francisco. Wants to get on the conversation. Billy Bones, good evening, my man. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, man. I think what happened at the end of that game is a little bit of coaching. Yes, it was execution from the players, but the coaching, the personnel, like Kerr has to get the right people in the game at the right time. I feel like he's losing sight of that. You know what I mean? So Wiggins, yes, he had a good game, but you know what? He was tired. Take him out. He was turning the ball over. He made that one little corner three that was kind of clutch or whatever. For the most part, he got tired down the stretch. He couldn't stay in front of his man. He couldn't even make a gimme layup. Get him out of there. Schroeder had some good energy. Get him in there. And then I think Post is, okay, get JTD back in there. Get some energy, because that's what we lacked at the end, was a little bit of energy. And it's very frustrating watching some of this going down, man.
No,
anyway.
I got you, Billy Bones. Point taken. I'm kind of with you. I think the energy, to me, that's, and I talked about this on Warriors Live, like the energy that they showed, and it wasn't just because they were hitting shots, although I do think that there's obviously a correlation between them knocking down a bunch of threes and them defending at a high level. When you see the ball go in, you're generally a little more motivated, should we say, to play defense. But the energy and effort was there from the start, and it was there from the starters. Again, they had a starting lineup change. Schroeder moves to the bench. Buddy Hield into the starting lineup. It was the 25th different starting lineup of the year, by the way, last year, in a year that did not result in the playoffs and was a roller coaster ride. They hit only 27, and that's a lot of starting lineups. 25 starting lineups through 43 games. I mean, you're the definition of inconsistent. So the one thing that you can control is your effort and your energy. And I thought the Warriors did that in the first half. And yeah, they came out gangbusters. They were firing on all cylinders, especially in that second quarter. They score 41 points, ties the most for any second quarter of the season. I think the most they've scored in a quarter this year was in the mid-40s. So offensively, it was one of their best quarters. And it's because they shot the crap out of the ball. I mean, they hit virtually everything they needed to in that second quarter. They made 8 threes on 12 attempts. And it came from a bevy of guys. It came from Guy Santos. Quentin Post got in the action. Steph Curry obviously hit one. Or hit a couple, I should say. Buddy Hield was 5 of 9 tonight. The one stat that I think Bonte Hill, who you can hear tomorrow from 6 to 10, has thrown out there is still intact, which is anytime that Buddy Hield scores 18 points or more, the Warriors are undefeated. He scored 17 tonight in a losing effort. But he shot the ball very well, including a couple of big threes during, I think, the Warriors' final push in that fourth quarter. They're a make-or-miss basketball team, and their margin for error is very thin. And that's why, again, we broke down what happened over the final 4 minutes offensively and where the Warriors really struggled in the half court against the Kings, who kind of turned everything into either a basket or mostly free throws. But the Warriors hurt themselves, I think, by allowing Sacramento to get back into this game in the third quarter. And that, to me, is where this all went sideways. Because turnovers are where the Warriors, I think, lost this game. The turnovers allowed the Kings to build momentum. The turnovers took the Warriors out of the flow state that they were clearly in the first half and primarily in the second quarter. I thought Dennis Schroeder was a poster child for the carelessness that they displayed in that third quarter. They got outscored 37-20, and I believe double digits of those points were off of turnovers. DeRozan had a big third quarter. Look, he had scored 19 points in the quarter, was 7 of 7. They basically turned a 17-point halftime deficit into a tie game, but it's because of the turnovers. The Warriors were a +7 in points off of turnovers in the first half. They finished the game -11 in points off of turnovers. So the Kings they were +18 in the second half alone on points off of turnovers. The Warriors gave them too many opportunities. They were live ball turnovers. They were stupid turnovers. There were mistakes that are, I don't even know if correctable is the word, because the Warriors continued to make them. And it wasn't just Schroeder. I thought he was the poster child for it because he committed 4 very avoidable turnovers in that quarter. But Wiggins had a couple of bad ones. Curry had a thoughtless one in the second half. Moses Moody turned the ball over. I mean, this is a basketball team that you can get into their heads and you can force them to turn over the ball. And pardon me, it wasn't Moody. It was Santos that had a turnover in this game. But Wiggins had 3. Curry had 3. Gary Payton had 4. And there's a reason why he only played 13 minutes in this game. It's because he was too careless with the ball. And the Warriors as a whole, when they have allowed teams back into games, it's been because of turnovers, missed shots, and those mistakes compound. Bob Myers was talking about on the ESPN broadcast, I think the Warriors were up 13 or 15 in that third quarter. And he's just discussing how easily it is to come back in a game that is being decided by 15 points. Like 15 points is what 7 points used to be 10, 15 years ago. 15 points goes in the blink of an eye. And it does because the game is played at such a pace and between the three-point line that when you're missing shots, it leads to leak-outs. When you're lackadaisical with the basketball, it leads to transition. The Kings were +28 in transition points tonight. The Warriors had a goose egg. In fast break points, I should say. Transition, fast break. The Warriors did not score a single fast break point. So in the second half, Kings were +18 in points off turnovers. For the game, they were +28 in fast break points. And the Warriors still had a chance to win this game. That, to me, is why, in one breath, this is a loss that absolutely stings, and it's frustrating as all hell because it seems like we've watched it again and again. Going back, this is not just a this year thing, right? This has been last year. This was to some extent the year before. Really, every year past when they won the championship. The Warriors are now, I think, also one game below 500 in clutch games. They'd played 24. They were 12-12. They're now 12-13 for whatever that's worth. Which is actually kind of surprising with how many of these games it feels like they've had. But the here we go again, you can just kind of see it on their faces. And the Kings, you have to give them credit. They are a good basketball team. They're now 10-1 in their last 11. And they are 10-2 since Doug Christie took over as interim head coach for Mike Brown. But this was a game the Warriors could have won. And that's one reason it hurts. Another reason why it hurts is because of the standings. You're now down 0-2 in the head-to-head to Sacramento, a team that, by the way, if you had beaten them tonight, if the Warriors had won this game and snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, as opposed to the reciprocal, which they did today, they would be tied with the Kings. They would be right in the thick of the play-in, which is, I think, probably where this team, is looking to be, at least stay right now while you have all your injuries and before you get healthy again, bringing Draymond and particularly Kuminga back. But that's another reason why it stings. And then also, the rest of the West also won today. I know Dallas lost. They've been reeling, but they're going to get Luka Doncic back eventually. But Minnesota won, which is a team that you actually have had success against. You do have the head-to-head tiebreaker against them, 3-1 in the season series. That's a team you could potentially catch. And then Phoenix, who looks like by the end of the week, they're going to get Jimmy Butler. I don't know how they're going to do it, what the trade's going to be, but they're probably going to have some additional firepower coming in. And they're a basketball team that I don't think is great. They're absolutely flawed, but they have more talent than what the Warriors have in their roster. So again, that's why the effort and the energy from the Warriors in the first half is something that it has to be baseline. Like, that has to be there every single game. But making mistakes is what is going to get the Warriors beat more often than not. They did not have to get to a situation where they were getting walked down by Sacramento in the final 4 minutes, where it was a one-possession game. You know, if they were able to keep that 17-point halftime lead to 10, maybe 9, 8 even by the beginning of the fourth quarter, this becomes a very different ball game where you're able to take that counter punch that Sacramento threw. But instead, you turn the ball over 8 times in the quarter. You give them free throws. You give them easy baskets. You allow DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, who were 6 for 20, the trio combined, that high output offensive scoring trio, 6 for 20 in the first half. You allow them to get going. And by the end of the third quarter, it's a tie game going into the fourth. And credit to the Warriors, they did not roll over. They didn't get rolled in this game. They just got walked down. And they got walked down because of mistakes and characteristics about this basketball team that have been prominent and present for the better part of the last 2 months. And that's what I think is frustrating watching it and sort of dissecting it, because I'm sure that they're going to go into the film room tomorrow and take a look at all these different plays and some mistakes. And some things are avoidable, some things aren't, but a lot of it's going to look familiar. And that's the most difficult part about it, is that it feels familiar. And you can kind of see it on their faces in crunch time of, here we go again. Curry's going to get double teamed. He's going to give the ball up. It's going to find its way to me. And if Andrew Wiggins isn't going to bail us out, I'm not really sure that I want the basketball in this situation. And I can't really blame him. Moses Moody, I can't blame him for wanting to find a different shot. I can't blame Quentin Post, who's out there getting his first meaningful minutes in an NBA game, playing in his first real decisive fourth quarter of an NBA competition, not wanting to shoot the basketball. I mean, I can't even blame Buddy Hield necessarily for not wanting to take a shot. But Curry is no longer at a place where he can generate the kind of looks against that defense without somebody to alleviate pressure. And it brings into the conversation the idea of a trade. I don't necessarily think there's one coming. I think that them getting healthy is their most likely path to achieving the potential of whatever this team is, which doesn't appear to be very high. But help ain't coming. Help ain't on the horizon. And if it is, I have some thoughts about it, but I don't think it's going to be a savior that's going to necessarily aid the Warriors in crunch time the way that people are hoping. All right, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up. Warriors fall to 21-22 after they are defeated 123-117 up in Golden One Center by the Sacramento Kings. Let's talk to Steel Toe, one of our favorites down in San Mateo. Steel Toe, my man, what's going on?
Thank you, Evans. Yeah, it was a really interesting game. How the Warriors shot like 45% on threes today in this whole game.
Yep.
Usually they win. That's an automatic win, and I'm starting to understand that the league. The whole league, all the coaches other than Steve Kerr, is starting to figure out how to really defeat this 45% on the threes that Steve Kerr is so in love with, and then all of a sudden he's just like infatuated, just soaking in oil with all that 3-point shooting, and the whole league has figured out how to beat it now, because usually you don't beat 45% of 3-point shooting. And now, like, Steve Kerr hasn't even figured it out yet. And I don't know why he's still here. Yeah. It's like Steve Kerr is a phony. He's a fake head coach. he gives you that perception that he's a Phil Jackson coaching tree, yet he never implements the triangle offense. Michael Jordan got 6 rings because he attacked the paint and scores free throws, in which Steve Kerr is dead last in. You're not a coach. You're not from Phil Jackson's coaching tree. You get what I'm saying? You're not from Greg Popovich's coaching tree, who Tony Parker and Ginobili drove to the basket and scored in the free throw and scored layups. And he doesn't even know how to teach any of the players how to low post from Tim. He learned nothing from Tim Duncan because Steve Kerr's phony, man. Jesus Christ.
Thanks, Dilto. All those players you named, I think if the Warriors had them, they probably would be better at free throw shooting or points in the paint or driving. But that's the reality of this roster. Like, the one thing that I guess I would criticize Kerr for tonight, if we're just looking at the game, is the fact that someone like Guy Santos, who was playing with a lot of energy, I thought he was, in many ways, the catalyst to them getting off to that hot start in the first half, just because of his energy. He wasn't afraid. He plays with confidence, and sometimes, is a little hard-headed with the ball, but at the same time, he's not afraid to make the mistake, which is kind of the mentality that I don't think a lot of the Warriors have, especially when things start to get tight. Guy Santos wasn't in the game a lot in that third quarter when things were beginning to go wrong. And as much as I would like to come down Kerr's road and say you should have played Santos more, and Santos was the reason, Santos, when the roster is healthy, is the 14th man. So I can't necessarily kill the guy for not going back to a player that, like, you're trying to read the room on every single night. And I don't think Kerr is perfect, but again, the Sacramento Kings were at full strength. Their starting lineup was DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, Domas Sabonis, and Keegan Murray. The Warriors had Gary Payton II in their starting lineup. And he was questionable tonight. I'm sorry. They don't win this game on paper. There's a reason why they were double-digit underdogs. The fact they were in this game was impressive. And it sucks that they lost. But in a way, I almost feel like the fact that they were able to generate the amount of good looks that they did in the first half, like, they have to rely on threes. I don't know if you saw their offense down the stretch of that game. And I'm not trying to single you out, Steel Toe. I'm more speaking to the masses. Like, for those that think that the Warriors and their coaching ideology is not allowing them to get to the free throw line or to score in the paint, just watch the game. They missed so many layups. They were 9 of 13 at the free throw line tonight. That's 70%. That's not very good. They're the worst free throw shooting team in the league. That's not coaching. That's players. You've had your entire life to get to the NBA to learn how to shoot a free throw. If you can't do it, you can't do it. I'm sorry. If you can't make layups, that's on you. And the Warriors tonight had a couple of, let's just, again, look at the end of that game. One of your most dependable players, Andrew Wiggins, and I would attribute this mostly to stamina because he played 37 minutes. He's guarding Fox on the other side. He's trying to help Curry score, but Wiggins makes a nice contest on a Malik Monk quarter step back three with 3:15 left. At that point, it is a 4-point Warriors lead. Transition the other way. Wiggins has an open lane to the cup. Off the back rim. Misses. That's a chance to go up by 5. And instead, the Kings come down, knock down a shot. It's a 2-point game. That's a 4-point swing because you missed a layup. Couple possessions later, Wiggins goes one-on-one. Takes a tough fadeaway late in the shot clock. Cannot hit, but it's in the paint. Misses. Wiggins also had a left-handed layup that he blew late in that game. I mean, it was with 1 minute and 50 seconds left in a tie game to go up by 2. He gets past his man. He gets to the cup, and he misses with the left hand. Like, and I don't mean to single out Wiggins because I thought he played really well tonight, but that's an example of even when they do have good looks, they cannot capitalize. That's not on Steve Kerr. His players missing wide open shots or not being able to hit free throws or get to the line, that's not him. Like, he can't do anything about that. Do I think that the Warriors are a bit too three-ball dependent? Yes. But I also think that's because I can't really see how else they're going to try and score with any sort of consistency. They took 48 threes tonight. They made 22 of them. They don't have anybody else outside of Curry that can really get to the rim, not named Wiggins, because Kuminga's not there. Schroeder's a player that's supposed to be able to get into the paint. He can't seem to buy a basket to save his life. Moses Moody doesn't drive to the rim. Guy Santos doesn't drive to the rim. I'm sorry. This roster is not conducive to the two parts of scoring that are supposed to generate the most easiest points. There's a reason why in baseball you want the three true outcomes, right? You either walk, you hit a home run, or you strike out, but you swing big or you don't swing at all. In the NBA, you want three kinds of shots. You want free throws, you want layups, and you want open threes. Well, the Warriors got 48 damn near open threes tonight. They made 22 of them. They didn't make any layups, and they can't get to the free throw line. So what are you going to try and do philosophically? You're going to try and emphasize the one thing that you are good at, which is generating open threes, and tonight it was knocking them down. The Warriors are a make-or-miss basketball team. I don't know if anybody's been watching all season. When they were 12-3, they shot the crap out of the basketball. Sure, they had a little more success inside the three-point line, but now, when you are as offensively challenged because of your roster and injuries and all the rest as ever this season, you're going to try and lean into the one thing that you at least have some semblance of consistency in, and that's shooting the three-point shot, which got them a 17-point halftime lead. They just couldn't hold on to it because they weren't able to generate in the clutch, in the half court. They couldn't get those same looks, and that's something that's been an issue all year. That hasn't just been now, it hasn't been the last month, it has been the entire season. So the Warriors got some recalibration to do. But to me, and I apologize for being long-winded about it, but to me, Steve Kerr is not the biggest issue right now with the Warriors. It is the team itself, constructed, compiled by the front office that is led by Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Joe Lacob. 888-957-9570 is the number. Let's wrap up with Kurt in Oakland before we got to hit a break here. We got Steve Kerr coming up on the other side of our commercial break, so stick around to hear his entire answer after that Kings loss. But Kurt, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for taking the call.
Yeah.
I'm just going to piggyback about everything that you just said. All these people that are trying to blame Kerr are Steve Kerr haters. They need to take a break and give it a rest. He's not the main problem. If the players can't make their layups and their free throws and their mid-range jump shots and make those mistakes on defense and make those mistakes turning the ball over and can't guard and can't get open and can't see the open lanes when people are trying to get open, come on now, people. Quit blaming Steve Kerr for all this stuff. He is not the main problem. The players need to step up. He empowers players to step up, but they're not stepping up. Whose fault is that? That's the player's fault. He gives them as much rope as he can, but if they start turning the ball over and not making the shots, next thing you know, you have a 10-point lead that goes down to 6, or the lead is gone. That's on the players for not stepping up and doing their job. So all you Steve Kerr haters out there, be quiet and deal with it. He's the best coach we've had in a long time. You could even say the best coach we've had since Al Idols was the head coach. Give it a rest, people. He made this team and helped them make him into a dynasty. People need to quit with this. I'm sick and tired of the Steve Kerr haters. Thank you for taking my call, sir. Have a good night.
Thanks, Kurt. Well, you said it, not me. But I do think that Kerr gets a lot of unnecessary flack. Now, he deserves some criticism because at the end of the day, to be fair to people who are Steve Kerr detractors, that's what we try and do. We try and swing both ways here. But the Warriors are 21-22. One thing that Kerr is paid to do is win basketball games. And he hasn't found a way to do it more than he has lost. And that is something that is absolutely deserving of criticism. I just don't believe it's because he's tanking the season or he's tanking these games. You know, you just look up and down this roster and it's like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I think Guy Santos is a really great player. Well, not a really great player, but you know what I mean. He's an effortful energizer bunny. I like Guy Santos. He's a good player, solid player. Quentin Post looks like he could be a nice player. And I think that there was some fringe contributions tonight that the Warriors can build on because they're going to play Chicago tomorrow. Like, they got a back-to-back, and they're probably going to need some of these guys to play just as well, if not better than they did tonight. But Guy Santos was the 50s, Guy Santos was, I think, a 50s pick. He was a second-round selection that the Warriors have been just kind of stashing, and he's been developing in Santa Cruz. Quentin Post, the 25-year-old second-round pick. Like, those guys aren't supposed to be in those situations. And it's because of necessity. And it's because this roster does not have enough answers right now to provide wins more consistently than they've lost. We're going to hear from Steve Kerr after the break. We got a split right now. We'll be back in a few minutes, so hang on. We're taking your calls, 888-957-9570. I see you, Chardall and Fremont. We'll get to you after the break. I see your text filing in as well. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up after the Warriors fall to the Sacramento Kings, 123-117. I also have some thoughts as to why the Warriors are particularly struggling to take care of the basketball. And there's one culprit. I kind of want to look at as a symbol for the Warriors, both struggles to keep the basketball consistently and also in crunch time. I hate to, but I got to go after him. We'll do that on the other side, along with Steve Kerr moving forward on Warriors Wrap-Up.
and scores and got fouled.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
All right, Evan Giddings with you. We're going to hear from Steve Kerr in just a moment. I see your calls. I see your texts. 888-957-9570. Warriors fall to Sacramento 123-117. The loss that stings after they were up by 17 at the half, 18 earlier in the basketball game. They go into the break after a 41-point second quarter. They shot the crap out of the ball tonight, 22 of 48 from distance. But the Kings just walk them down. And in the final 4 minutes, they outscored the Warriors 12-4. The Warriors scored only 4 points in the final 4 minutes of that basketball game, and half of those points were basically a meaningless layup by Moses Moody at the end of the game. Steph Curry scored 2 points in the second half and only got 5 shots after only in the game shooting 11 times. And I think to the 7-1-8's point, or question, why do we start playing differently in fourth quarters? Guys didn't seem ready or willing to attack when Steph is double-teamed in crunch time. To me, this is coaching. When they get an advantage, instead of attacking, they give it back to Steph. That's bad basketball. Well, I do think that this team, number one, they're Steph-centric. When you have the best shooter ever, you want to get him the ball. And this idea that Steph Curry shot, for example, I think it was like the 94-second mark of the game. Took a 30-footer early in the shot clock. If that's the best shot the Warriors are going to get, well, then I understand why, instead of attacking, they're giving it back to Steph. Because they don't think that there's a better look. I disagree. And I disagree with people out there that are saying that that's the best shot, that was a good decision by Steph. It wasn't. Steph Curry has made some boneheaded decisions in fourth quarters just like other players. Now, he's also been the primary reason they have pulled out a lot of games late in fourth quarters in clutch time. That's why they've won 12 of those games. They're 12-13 now. But Curry's not without criticism. Curry didn't have a lot of help tonight, but he also didn't help the cause. Again, the Warriors were missing layups, but I thought Steph gave in on that possession. I thought he gave in to the fact that he wasn't involved offensively, and he didn't have any trust in his teammates. And in that spot, it hurt them because he missed a 3, and Fox went down and made a couple free throws to put the game away. So, it was kind of the last final look, and it ended up costing the Warriors, just like Wiggins' missed transition layup cost the Warriors, or his missed left-handed layup down the stretch cost the Warriors, or Quentin Post committing an illegal screen cost the Warriors. They had 4 empty possessions, a couple of which they didn't even get a shot on. And that's unfortunately been the story of their season over the last month and a half, which is when things have gotten tight, they've puckered, the sphincter has shrunk, and they've been unable to walk out of buildings with victories more than they've lost, which is exactly what happened tonight as the Sacramento Kings score 75 points in the second half to the Warriors 52. All right, I promised Chardall we'd talk to him. Chardall, welcome to the program. What's going on? You're from Fremont?
Yes.
All right, Chardall, what'd you make of it?
It's great calling in the show. I love your show. I love that you cover the Warriors and you do a really great job. I would have to say tough loss for the Warriors tonight. I give credit to the Kings, man. They played a phenomenal game. Fox and Sabonis, everybody played their part. But this was an ugly loss, man. I mean, I thought we were going to get the win tonight, but we what is done is done. We can't really focus on that. We have to really move on. But I think we have to bounce back and get a win against the Bulls, because this is unacceptable. Curry had a double-double, 14, 12. I think it was a double-double for Steph Curry. So that was great for him, but this was not like the way you like to see this team, because this team is a very well put together unit. But they just weren't able to get the job done tonight. But what were your thoughts on the effort, and do you think that they're going to get a chance to bounce back against Chicago?
Thanks, Chardall. I think they got I don't want to put anything before the Warriors, but I'd like to think that they could beat the Bulls. The Bulls are not a good basketball team. And right now the Warriors don't look like it either. But I think the Bulls, are 5 or 6 games below 500. I haven't checked, but I'll be doing Warriors Live and wrap up tomorrow. There's a couple of pieces on that Bulls team that a lot of people think the Warriors should trade for. Nikola Vucevic is at the top. And I think the emergence of Quentin Post tonight highlighted that both Post is an NBA player, but also maybe a stretch 5 is the answer for the Warriors. I am not so sure that's going to change everything for them, but Vucevic could be an answer that could help them get over the hump in some of these games. Zach LaVine is another player I don't think the Warriors would want to go after because he's really expensive, but that's someone that other fans have clamored for, a player from another team. So, I just think that the Warriors are in obviously a difficult spot, and they're not playing well whatsoever. But that's why it's kind of a double-edged sword, this game. Like, they blew it, yes, but also the execution and the energy and effort that they displayed, I would say through one half of this game, not the second half wholly, but like that's how they have to try and win games. That's what they've been resigned to. They are talent deficient. And so they have to make up with that with execution and energy. And I thought they played with confidence in a not so easy place to play against a team that's been the hottest team literally in the NBA over the last 10 games, now 11, where they're 10-1. And they were at full strength, the Kings were. And the Warriors were not. And they were in this game. So in one sense, it sucks that they blew it and that they had an opportunity to close out Sacramento. But at the same time, I can see why some fans and maybe even members of that team would look at this game and say, okay, that's something that we can draw from. That's a game we can learn from. That's a game that we blew, but there's somewhat of a template there. Because the one thing the Warriors haven't been as consistent this year, again, they started their 25th different starting lineup in this game. And it's really hard to build any semblance of consistency when you're playing different players in different minutes and different rotations. And the Warriors, I thought, did a pretty good job of mitigating a lot of that with the energy they had out of the gates. This from the 707. Curious to take a good portion of the blame on this one. Too many over-the-shoulder no-look passes. He has to lead by example. Do not turn the ball over. Yeah, in the third quarter, he was a culprit of that. The fact that he also couldn't get very many shots whatsoever in this game. I think he averages 17 or 18 on the season. Tonight he only took 11 shots, and he took 5 of them in the second half. He only took 1 in the third quarter, and a lot of it was because he couldn't get open. And that's not something I've necessarily been accustomed to with Curry. Yes, he gets double-teamed, and they force the ball out of his hands like anybody else, but 11 shots in a game that's close, that's extremely low for Steph. He only took 4 threes in this game. I mean, they ran him not only off the three-point line, but that indicates to me that they basically just took him out of this game from the moment he stepped across half court. And that's what we saw. And the Warriors were unable to make the Sacramento Kings pay as a result of it. And that's kind of just the strategy right now against the Warriors. Get the ball out of Steph's hands. Keon Ellis was a pest tonight. There was that one possession in the fourth quarter where he was chasing Curry all around, and Curry, to your point, 707, threw it towards Post in the corner, who was wide open, missed him, threw it out of bounds. I thought that was a turnover that was forced by Ellis and his energy. And he's a really good defender. And really good defenders, increasingly so, have been able to guard Steph and neutralize him more than ever, which is what happens when you're 36 going on 37 and you're looking around and nobody else is able to really take much off your plate. Before we get to Steve Kerr, let's go out to Dublin and talk to Hassan, get him in on the conversation. Hassan, welcome to Warriors Wrap-Up. What's going on?
Thank you very much for taking my call. I'm an avid listener of 95.7 and obviously diehard Warriors lovers.
Right on.
This is my probably second call in the season, and I just don't understand, and maybe you want to shed some light. I've watched a lot of basketball, Warriors basketball, and obviously my kids playing basketball. Why would he sit down both Buddy Hield and Steph at the same time? See, a good coach understands that Buddy is having a great game. He isn't at his home kind of thing. players generally perform well in their home courts. I mean, Jordan Poole was an example last week, coming over here, dropping 38 on us. You want to give them a run. You sit both of them down. They're on a run. We still have a lead of 8 to 10 points. I mean, I think Kerr is making a lot of critical mistakes. Agreed with whatever you just said, that Steph was guarded. And I think Steph countered that really well, though he turned the ball over a few times. But, on the other end, I don't know how many assists he had, 9, 10 assists. He got everybody a great look, and they knocked it down. And I think that was a great strategy from Steph to counter me. Okay, double me up. I'm going to, get an open three.
Hey, Hassan, just real quick. Are you talking about the stretch in the fourth quarter when Hield and Curry weren't on the floor together?
No, he took Buddy and Steph out in the third quarter.
On the third quarter. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, continue.
I mean, that's when they're going on the run. Why would you do that? Why would you take out both the shooters? I mean, you want spacing on the floor. I think if you go back and look at the 43 games that they have played, anyone going in the last seasons, there are a bunch of mistakes that Curry is making. And I personally feel Mr. Lacob should have a real conversation. I love Steve Kerr to death. He has given us everything. But, I think there's a fatigue. I don't think he's able to get the best out of this team. Look what happens to Kings. Mike Brown left. He's a fantastic coach. The energy is coming in. They turned the season around. Yes, we are not as talented. We are small. Given all of that, but I think there's just a lot of mistakes. I hate the rotations. You said 26 starting lineups in 42 games. Players go up on the moon and then they come on the floor. Today's shooter came off the bench. So I'll leave it to you. Thank you so much for the call.
No, thank you, Hassan. Feel free to call back anytime. I like your perspective. So my guess, Curry in the third quarter, my guess would be that's when he's supposed to come out. I mean, Curry in this game played 34 minutes, and it's also the front of a back-to-back. That's something you have to take into account, too, with Curry, is that if you are going to play him tomorrow, and I have my doubts that he will because he hasn't played back-to-backs, I think, the last two, but if you're going to play him tomorrow, you can't run him into the ground tonight. And so they probably had an idea of when he was going to play and when he wasn't. And this is where Dennis Schroeder has come up short. And you're right. Buddy and Steph were out during that period in the third quarter they made their run. The Warriors also had Wiggins and Schroeder, I believe, on the floor in the game at the same time. Schroeder is someone that was brought in to mitigate the Steph Curry non-minutes. Take Buddy out of this equation. I know he had a good shooting game tonight, but Buddy Hield hasn't been able to throw a stone in the ocean for the majority of the last month. So I can't necessarily kill Kerr for not playing him more. Dennis Schroeder has not been good. Blunt. Like, he just hasn't played well enough for the Warriors in the minutes that Curry hasn't played for them to not sacrifice large leads. Dennis Schroeder made 4 mind-boggling, avoidable turnovers in the third quarter, which got the Sacramento Kings going. And that, to me, is where, yes, Buddy could have been in the game. Steph certainly could have been in the game. But that's why you traded for this guy. That's why you acquired him. And while we're on the subject, because I've been kind of holding this in for a while, I wasn't a big fan of the trade in the first place, but I understood it because they basically swapped out a player that was hurt, Melton, who was out for the season, and got a player in who could, in a perfect world, do the things that Brandon Pajemski, who's now hurt, was not able to do, which was help you in non-Steph minutes, play more on the ball, be somewhat of a scorer for you, and basically orchestrate the second unit. That's why Dennis Schroeder came off the bench in this game. This is the first time, I think, since his first game as a Warrior, when they got blown out by 50 in Memphis, that he's come off the bench. Dennis Schroeder has not lived up to the billing of what the Warriors traded him for. In the 18 games since Schroeder has joined Golden State, he's a minus 140 in 487 minutes. The minus 140 in those 18 games since he's joined Golden State, traded from Brooklyn, is the worst of any player on the Warriors. So not only did he hurt you during the non-Steph minutes in the third quarter, when he had 4 extremely avoidable turnovers that got the Kings going, and that led to double-digit points off turnovers, which got them back into that game, tied it going into the fourth quarter. But then, because he was careless with the basketball, you weren't even able to play him in crunch time, which is when he's supposed to be the fix that the Warriors are looking for offensively. He's supposed to be a guy that can take pressure off of Curry. He's supposed to be somebody who can hurt teams for selling out on Steph at the end of games. But Schroeder hasn't done that. And he's not just hurting the Warriors there, but he's been hurting the Warriors in other areas. And I realize that they gave up nothing to get him, but he has hurt them more than he's helped them, and tonight was another example of that. So, I didn't mean to go on Schroeder to answer your question, Hassan, and I appreciate the call, but to me, that's where the issue lies. It's not Steph. It's not Hield. It is Kerr to some extent, but it's because of his faith that he has in a player that he has to, that was acquired to do something that he cannot do. Speaking of Steve Kerr, while we have an opportunity, let's listen to him. He was at the podium after the game.
The second half issue, particularly
turnovers. Yeah. The whole game was third quarter turnovers. They were trapping in the first half. We handled the traps beautifully. Got wide open looks, knocked down shots, and then second half we lost our poise. They picked up their pressure, but other than maybe 2 or 3 plays where they trapped Steph and got a deflection, I thought almost every turnover was unforced. But sometimes when you get sped up, you make poor decisions, and I thought that happened a little bit tonight.
Steve, what were you looking for bringing Schroeder off the bench?
Well, Buddy has been great with Steph, and their numbers together are really good. Just felt like we get a little more catch and shoot with Buddy, a little more spacing, and I love Dennis coming off the bench for his ball handling, his defense. He obviously is going to play all the non-Steph minutes, and then play some with him as well. And so that was the idea behind the lineup change.
You mentioned a little pregame, but even playing Quentin seems like you're trying to lean more offense. I mean, is this what you're trying to do in the foreseeable future here, is to kind of try to find better offensive lineups?
Yeah, but it changes every night, But yeah, we were planning on playing Quentin post, regardless of Loon's illness. We saw we got him out there in the first half. Playing with a space big is it's a luxury, and it's something that gives us a different look. And Quentin's a really good player. You can see it. He's tough. He knows how to play. It was a great experience for him tonight, and I'm really, really excited about his growth and his development, and it's fun to see what he can do.
And that was Steve Kerr again after the loss in Sacramento tonight, 123-117. The Warriors fall below 500 for the second time this season. For the first time this season, they are officially out of the play-in, cleared by a game of 10th place. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up. A couple more minutes here. Also a reminder that we got to get to our Crashing the Boards segment, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Trace Jackson Davis, I know we were talking about Quentin Post at the end of that press conference and the absence of Kevon Looney due to illness. TJD also, I thought, played pretty well tonight. He got abused by Sabonis and has in his first few meetings against him. But tonight I thought he held his own. 24 minutes off the bench, had 8 rebounds to lead the Warriors, 5 of them offensive, and had a nice and one against Sabonis, did a decent job. And I think the contrast between him and Post is something that the Warriors can experiment with, because he, along with Looney, are a little more traditional workman-like fives. Post is a stretch 5. He's something that the Warriors don't have, and they're going to see one of those guys tomorrow against the Bulls and Nikola Vucevic. But Post is somebody that I think Kerr is, again, he has to lean into, because there's no other options on this team to try and find some offense from the bigs. I mean, really, you were playing Kuminga at 4 before he got hurt. He's an offensively geared player. Moody, I think, can help you playing the 4, spread the floor, but they don't have true bigs that can step out and make a 3-point shot with any form of consistency. With all due respect to Draymond Green, that's not someone in that opposing defenses have to respect that is going to spread the floor. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to talk to Rich in Fremont. Wants to get into the conversation. Any last text messages as well, we'll try and clean up also 888-957-9570. But Rich, what's going on, my man? How we doing?
Hey, man, thanks for taking my call. I was just pointing out something that I noticed I don't really hear from the fan base and you guys at 95.7 The Game, and maybe it's an observation that probably doesn't need attention, but it just seems to me that I watched the Warriors in the second half just blow a lot of games. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's because they're not conditioned well. I don't know if it's because, they just all of a sudden, it just seems like in the second half, when games are close, they just kind of fall apart. And I'm constantly seeing this over and over and over again this season. And it's just like, okay, what is going on with them in the third and fourth quarter? I mean, they get in this rhythm, and then all of a sudden in the third and fourth quarter, they can't keep up. And the other thing I'm noticing about them, in the second half, they can't stop teams from scoring. Tonight, it was an obvious, example of that. They could not stop the Kings from scoring on them. It was crazy. I'm like, guys, how many points was it? 20-some odd points in the second half from the Kings, and close to nothing from the Warriors in the second half, and then the turnover started. I'm like, so how does that work? In other words, how is the coaching staff going to stop the bleeding in the second half for this Golden State Warriors team? Because I'm tired of seeing it, and I'm sure everybody else is, because they're playing well in the first half, but in the second half, they just fall asleep. I don't get it. Thanks for my call.
Appreciate it, Rich. No, I don't think you're the only one. I think a lot of people have noticed that, and it's an observation that we're trying to figure out why. I think in the first half, let's just take this game today. The Warriors made a lot of threes in the first half. They shot 55, close to 60% in the first half from three. That's probably going to come down a bit. So part of it is they're not making as many threes in the second half. And again, they don't generate free throws or layups. So they are very three-point dependent. And I think their defense is also, look, if you're asking another team to take the ball to the basket, you're going to be allowed to set up. You can't allow them to run. Clearly the Kings, who had 28 fast break points tonight to the Warriors 0, are a team that likes to get out and play fast. The Warriors didn't allow them to play quickly and force them to operate more in the half court in the first half than in the second half because they're missing more shots. They're not getting stoppages. I think that is a big reason. Another reason is, and I don't mean it as a slight, but especially in crunch time, I do think the Warriors, and it's a necessity, but they're too Curry-centric. And what I mean by that is everyone knows on the floor, the 5 guys on the other team and the 4 guys playing alongside Steph, that him shooting the ball is bar none, by far and away, the best shot for the Warriors. Okay, so then there are 2 focuses. Offensively, it's to get Steph the ball and get him open. Defensively, it's to cover Curry, don't let him shoot, and don't let him get open. So I feel like I'm watching, again, the last 4 minutes, the Warriors scored 2 points. The Kings ran away with the game, they won. I felt like I was watching over and over again with Curry getting double-teamed, and this happens more often than not. It's like the Warriors are taking up the majority of their 24 seconds just trying to get him the ball, and they're waiting for him to run around. So instead of thinking about where they need to go with it, whereas in the first half, it didn't matter if Curry had the ball or not because, again, there's no pressure. You don't have the pressure of the clock, of the situation, of the fourth quarter, the crowd screaming at you. The moment is not there in the first half. So pressure is a big part of it too. But in the fourth quarter, everything's about Steph. And I understand why. And that's kind of the rock and hard place the Warriors are stuck between, which is he's got to get the shot, but how can he when he's being covered by 3 people? And that's where I think someone needs to have, I guess, the mentality of do it myself if and when Steph can't. And the only other player on the roster, I think, tonight that was on the floor is Andrew Wiggins. ironically, because I just spent some time ripping him, but the other player I think that has that mentality is Dennis Schroeder. But he played so poorly in the third quarter and was careless with the basketball that you couldn't have him on the floor in the fourth because he just didn't play well enough, frankly. And so Wiggins at that point had played 36 minutes. He's tired. He's guarding both ways. Curry's running around trying to get open. Moody's not going to shoot. Quentin Post for damn sure is not going to shoot the basketball, playing his first real meaningful NBA minutes. And that's where you're just stuck. And that's where I think it's frustrating watching the Warriors try and figure out how to get Curry an opening while watching the defense knowing that that's all the Warriors' offense is geared around. And I think that's why they kind of get walked down. But they play tomorrow against the Bulls. They got an opportunity to bounce back and get a win. I think one they absolutely need, of course, because they got to get back to 500. And, you know, for everybody, like the Warriors are not necessarily done. I don't think they're very good this year, but they can only look up at the standings and say, what can we do? You know, that's what, like, we're here to talk about the doom and gloom and all that. The Warriors are a team that's just got to lace them up and try and go get a win tomorrow night because they are 2.5 games out of 6th place. They're now 2 games also out of 13th place. And that's just the Western Conference right now in the middle of the pack and towards the bottom of the pack where the Warriors are in regards to the play-in. That's why this game hurts. If you'd won this game tonight, you would have been tied with the Kings. You'd have been right in the thick of the 9 or 8 seed. But instead, you're a game out, and you are setting officially in 11th place, a place the Warriors have not been this year, which is a sole possession lottery team. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow as well. How do the Warriors figure this thing out? How do they try and endure? Again, I talked about this in pregame. This is an arduous month. And it's also a critical time because they got 8 of 9 at home. They're 8-2 to begin this 9-game stretch in which they could try and gain a little bit of ground before the trade deadline, before hopefully Kuminga comes back, before hopefully Draymond comes back, and they can make their final push into the All-Star break and beyond. But they got to get some victories. And that's, to me, what the most important part of this next couple of weeks is winning basketball games. And I frankly don't really care how, because we saw tonight, I thought they had a template of how they need to play with energy, with effort. They made shots when they needed to in the first half, and they built a lead. But it doesn't matter because they lost. And that's what people are going to be talking about tomorrow when they lead shows. Get Curry some help. Do they make a trade? Well, 2 guys, Levine and Vucevic, trade targets are in town tomorrow. We'll see how they play. That'll be a 7 o'clock tip right here on 95.7 The Game. I will have Warriors live for you, and then Warriors wrap after. We're going to be live at Chase Center, so looking forward to that one. Tail end of a back-to-back. But in the meantime, a big thank you to our network coordinator, Cameron Williams. Big thank you to Carter Chickering, who's back here getting all this sound ready for you, along with all the sound you hear, of course, all night long here during the Warriors broadcast. My name is Evan Giddings, saying so long after the Warriors fall one final time. 123-117. We'll be back at it tomorrow for the Bulls. In the meantime, lock into 95.7 The Game tomorrow. Bonte and Shasky from 6 to 10. Steiny and Guru 10 to 2. Willard and Dibbs from 2 to 6. We'll talk to you next time on your home for Golden State Warriors basketball. 95.7 The Game. Have a good night.